Welcome to episode 5 of The Opinionated Truth. My name is Derek. Now that I have a guest, I'm trying to be all formal. But I just really wanted to introduce this brother to you. I've been knowing him for over 10 years. I've been with him through his journey of starting his business, and he claims that he's learned a lot from me, but I've actually learned more from him than I think he has from me because of his drive and his passion, because sometimes I get kind of bogged down with all the BS that I have going on in this business life or entrepreneurial life. So having brothers like this who I can really sit and talk to, and I know that they're going through the same stuff I'm going through, it's really helps relieve a lot of the stress that I have in my life. So really want to introduce him. His name is Bryn Keith, out of DC, and I'm gonna let him tell you what his business is.
Now I feel pressure. First off, thank you for making me top 5. I just made the list. Never been top 5 anything. Never, except when it's time to do chores. I'm always top 2 in my house. Well, I'm always number 1. Yeah, always number 1. So Bryn Keith Clothing started about 13 years ago. And the idea behind the clothing line, and then taking a step back, there was no brand name. There was no brand. There was no label. I needed to find clothes that fit me both in size and in personality. So I'm 6'8", and at the time I was a featherweight at 6'8", and I couldn't find things in stores to fit. And so I purchased custom clothes in a few different places. And, or actually I bought clothes off the rack that never really fit me. And one day I was leaving work and walking across the campus. I was an assistant director at a position at American University. And I don't know if you ever walk towards a building, but if it's bright outside and dark inside the building, the doors look like mirrors essentially. So I'm walking and the wind blows. The wind blows and my pants come up to the middle of my shins. My shirt's kind of untucked, and I start to look like Superman because the wind is that strong.
Yo, man, this story is getting a little weird
and a little personal.
Okay. Okay.
And the shirt's flapping, and I'm like, man, I look like a mess. And I go finally get to my car, and I call my girlfriend at the time, and now my wife, and she became my wife because she told me the honest truth. And I said,
"You was looking like a 6'8" Superman."
Yeah, but without any superhero qualities, right? And so I said, when we go out together, how do I look? And she said, "You want me to be honest?" And I said, "Maybe not now, because you asked me." And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Next time I come over to your place, we're going to take a look at the clothes in your closet." Fast forward when she comes over to my place, and all the clothes that she didn't like or she thought was ill-fitting were laying on my bed. In my closet were 2 pair of pants and 1 shirt. And at that point, the transition shifted. And that's when I started looking for something that fit me better, which led me into purchasing custom clothes. The places I went, they were either way too expensive for my budget at the time, or the service, given I was receiving something personal, was very impersonal, and I didn't like it. And so at that point, I thought maybe there's a way that I can get clothes for myself by making them myself and figuring out how that works. So I had my MBA at that point, and MBAs don't teach you how to start business. They teach you how to support businesses that already exist. And so there were some challenges there, but that's really how we got started. That's really how it got started. And my first store was my living room. It was nothing cool, nothing sexy. I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Wow. Now, let me ask you this. Now, going back to when you were walking across the campus, did you have problems finding? Because again, you're 6'7", 6'8".
Yeah, give me all my
okay,
now,
okay,
6'8",
okay.
6'8".
But you don't play basketball.
Nah, I used to before it hurt.
Okay.
That was about the 3rd grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. See, that's just jealousy talking. That's jealousy creeping in. But anyway, were you always having problems finding clothes that fit you? Which is an obvious question, but what was the price difference? Because I've seen commercials about big and tall stores, but just kind of like the Lane Bryant stuff. A lot of the tall brothers that I know, are brothers and sisters, they say that the clothes in those stores don't look good.
Right.
Just like they were saying, like with Lane Bryant for the plus size women, it was like a lot of times, that shit just looks whack. So was cost a factor for you because you were like, hey man, that's why I want to make some clothes, for myself, or was it just that the shit was just whack?
So it was all of that. So it was cost, it was pricing, and it was also the industry at the time. I don't think, while there was a conscious space for big, for tall, for big and tall, that's not the sweet spot in where money was made, right? So money's made with the quote unquote average size, not the people on the ends of the spectrum, at least not when I started in '05. And if it was so, it wasn't well marketed, and I'm based in DC, so it would have been easy to get. I found myself ordering online for clothes, and where I could get the sleeve length right or the collar of the shirt right, the body could cover a car, right? Because of that big and tall. You weren't big or tall. You had to be both.
Now, at the time, did they have online stores?
It was magazines.
Oh, okay.
It was all magazine based, and so I used to get tennis shoes out of East Bay, and larger sizes, and they were obviously selling the data. And so then I started receiving magazines from King Size magazine, King Size, and that was a store online, and that's how again, not online but in magazines, because the internet hadn't evolved to sales like it is. There was no Amazon then. There was none of that stuff.
So what's the percentage of people? Because I heard it's like, only 10% of people are over 6 foot tall. So in the world, I don't know, man. I don't want to give out any badass numbers, but
you were close.
I was close.
No, close and giving out badass numbers. Go ahead.
Okay, so when you were talking about making the clothes for you, and you started your business, were you thinking about tall people, or were you thinking about, I want to start a custom suit company just to make some real stylish shit?
Honestly, I had a specific need, it being 6'8". My wife's 5'11". And so we thought, well, even if we have to buy into a supply line or supply chain to get the clothes, because we could control the cost to us, because it would be at cost, we would save over time. That was it. And the only way to do that was to go the custom route. It wasn't to mass produce 50,000 shirts and see if I could find people who fit the size. It was, we can make one shirt, one suit, one skirt, one pair of pants, one overcoat, etc. That was it. It was just for us, just for me, just for her. And what happened is friends saw the clothes that I was beginning to wear, that I was making, and asked where the clothes were coming from. And when somebody asks, hey man, where you get that from, it's not always a good thing. So I was concerned, like, right? But they liked the clothes, and so people then wanted to get what I had, because we were all shopping at the same stores, Abercrombie and Fitch and Banana Republic and maybe Old Navy, or that kind of place.
Now, did they sell?
They didn't.
Okay.
We all make do with what we can find.
Okay.
Again, those clothes are made for the quote unquote average person. And so I was at a cookout with friends, and it turned into an impromptu focus group where at 6'8", I thought my challenges for clothes fitting was unique to the tall guy, because that was my only real perspective. But then sitting with a friend who's 5'8", 5'9", his challenges were the exact same, right? The sleeves worked, the collar was nice, but the body was too big. Or all the clothes and the colors were plain and simple and very homogenous. So you go into the office and everybody had on blue shirts and khakis. Or white shirts.
Hold on, question.
Yes.
Homogenous. What does that mean?
That means everybody looked the same.
Oh, okay.
There was no real creativity. It was a flat line.
Don't ever use big words on this thing.
I have a degree in English.
Yeah.
And so I read a lot.
And I really don't have a degree in nothing. So that was kind of an insult. But anyway, keep going with your homogenous story.
My homogeneity, right? Yeah. See, not even a word.
Yeah.
But it was at that point that I realized there's actually something to this. If the challenges I have are actually standard across the board, then maybe I can help friends.
Now, why would someone like just go to a tailor? Like, it's because I've always thought going to a tailor was kind of intimidating. Even if I bought a suit or bought some pants and I had to get them hemmed up or something like that, I always felt real intimidated going into a tailor or a shop that does alterations. Now, did you do that at first? Did you try to get suits and then go to a tailor? So what really made you think about, okay, I want to go from buying off the rack to making my own stuff? Like, was the middle part you going to the tailors and seeing the process? Like, what made you go? What was your mindset on that?
I only knew that suits could be tailored. So the places I went and purchased suits, when I could find them that fit well enough, they would adjust the sleeve length, maybe the waist of the pants, and the leg length if there was enough fabric to work for me, right? But it was never in shirts. The shirts I wore looked like pillowcases because when you go to buy suits, they don't talk to you about altering shirts or how we can make a shirt look better on
Yeah, that's
you,
true.
right? So when I started, all I made was shirts for the first 2 years because I understood shirts. I understood cotton, and I knew what polyester was, and I knew what a polyester cotton blend kind of looked like because I had that in my closet based on where I'd been ordering before.
And you know what I thought with shirts, I think that's a real cool thing because I know guys that have 3 suits, but they got like 20 shirts. Right. And you know, when you see them, you like, damn man, this dude is always fresh. But then when you pay attention to him, you like, oh, okay, that's the same suit, but he switches up the shirts and ties. So is that why you started with the shirts? Again, I know you said
the price point. It was easier, right?
Okay.
So because suits would cost you a few $100s, but a shirt was costing, we could back then maybe $85, $95, right? And that was a fair price point, and it's what I personally could afford at the time. I couldn't really afford to make myself custom suits, and also didn't really understand the design aesthetics and what a suit fit should be. Whatever they told me in the stores where I purchased a suit, you know, K&G or Macy's or JCPenney at the time, like, okay. And they have no idea what they're talking about. Wow. Yeah, it's whatever they were told in the back before they hit the floor for the first time. That's what they know.
Yeah, because I noticed that too when I here in Atlanta, I go to a couple of these places where they quote unquote say they're custom suits, but they're kind of semi-custom.
Right.
And you meet these guys and they say they're tailors or they know how to fit you, but they really are just glorified just employees because this one guy, he had told me he worked at this particular place for, man, I think 15 years. And one day I had bought a suit out of there, and you know, he was fitting me and he was doing his thing. And I went into the dressing room for something, and I was sitting, and it was another guy that came in there. Mm-hmm. And this dude was his body type was totally different from mine.
Right.
And he was telling that guy the same shit that he was telling me.
Right.
It wasn't any person like being custom about it. It was just almost like he was reading from a script.
Right.
And I was like, yo. And then I was paying more money for that particular suit. And I was like, yo, this dude is basically treating me just like anybody. It wasn't any personalization with it. So with you, did you feel that going from your ordering the suits to starting your store, you know, getting your brick and mortar, mm-hmm. is that the reason why you went from starting in your home to the brick and mortar, or am I kind of jumping a little bit too far?
You jumped, but you made it sound like it was intentional, right? I appreciate that. No, so we started selling clothes out of our living room. You know, I didn't have a storefront. I didn't even know how that worked at the time. I had I had an MBA, but they don't teach you how to start businesses from scratch. They give you the same books that I could have gone to Barnes and Nobles and purchased, or Books A Million, and tell you how long ago that was. But the transition was really from my living room to the trunk of my car, because my wife said we can't keep having strangers come to the house. And she was pregnant with our daughter at the time. Okay. And so I said, yes, ma'am, as any married guy does. Yeah. And packed up the swatch books in the suitcase, put them in my trunk, and I started going to clients' homes. Well, when you transition from your home, where you can facilitate, manage, and control the environment, to someone else's home or someone else's office. You don't have control of anything. The phone rings all the time. Kids come running in the room. The wife's upstairs who's unhappy. The boyfriend's in the other room and he wants to watch the game. And so I had to find a way to create this experience in a space that I couldn't manage or I couldn't really control, right? And so, that was the initial challenge. But in doing that, I began to really understand how personal the experience was becoming for me with the clients and with my clients in the beginning who were all friends with me, right? And so the only way this business would grow is if my friends would tell other people about the experience, or they would tell other people about the clothes. And so even if the clothes didn't fit in the beginning, it looked, I don't know if you've ever seen the Cosby Show episode of the Gordon Gartrell shirt, where Theo wanted this high-end design shirt, and one of the sisters, not Vanessa, anyway, one of the sisters makes this shirt, and one sleeve is like a foot longer than the other. The lapel is huge on one side and real teeny. Anyway, so we made some really bad stuff in the beginning because I didn't know what I was doing.
And I really think that was really a bad example, bringing up Bill Cosby. But anyway,
I never said Bill. I
you
did
said
say
the Cosby Show. But anyway, like, keep going with that example. That was a great example.
Yeah.
But keep going. That might really get X'd out. But keep going.
Let's rewind this.
Yeah.
But no. So in the beginning, the fits weren't always the best, but the experience is what people appreciated. Because I didn't know a lot about clothing, I had to buy books because there was no internet that had, such significant histories and detailed information on everything that it does now.
Right.
So I would go into clothing stores, and if there was a book on the floor, there was a model for people to pick up and see samples of suits, I would buy the book.
Right.
And look at those suits and figure out who the best of the best were to make it right. But as a part of that, I realized the people I was serving, they didn't know any more than I did.
Wow.
And so if I could help my customers, clients, and friends become informed consumers, whether they came back to me or went somewhere else, they were better armed to get what they want. But people appreciated the experience in the education. And this was people who were in their 20s all the way up to their 60s. I'm educating them on clothes and fabrics and styles and cuts. And with that, it was time to stop going to people's homes and offices. And to be honest, man, I would meet people in parking lots. I met people in restaurant bathrooms, in their corporate bath, because they didn't want friends to know they were getting custom clothes, because there was this sense that you had to be rich, or you've got this ego because you want clothes made just for you, and it was none of that. And a lot of that's gone away since then.
Now I want to know the jump.
Okay.
Like the jump from going from your living room to, again, you even thinking about starting a brick and mortar, because like you were saying, it was
Gotcha.
you as you learn, like, going to these people's homes and things of that sort, like, it was really the personal experience that they really liked. So now going from the living room to the brick and mortar,
Yes.
money wise,
Yes.
like, now, because I'm thinking you were in your living room because you didn't have the money to start a brick and mortar, because
Right.
most people I think of with custom clothes, they always try to have a brick and mortar first so they can bring the people in. So,
but now that seems like a more sensible way to go about it. But 13 years ago, when custom wasn't prevalent, it wasn't everywhere, it wasn't an option like it is now.
Okay.
The Burger King didn't say have it your way until about 5 or 6 years ago. They
Wow.
weren't saying that in 05, right? So you basically have a custom burger. You can have it with bacon or with onions or tomatoes or pickle, whatever you want.
right.
So back then, to transition from my living room to a brick and mortar, one, it was a cash flow thing, because I didn't start making clothes to make money. It was to save money in order to get clothes that fit me, and then learning that friends had the same challenges. And so going to homes and offices, it was a way to extend what we were offering for the reasons my wife told me we couldn't have strangers in the house anymore.
Right.
And it got to the point where I would spend weekends in the car driving from place to place. And DC traffic is a lot like Atlanta traffic.
Okay.
And so a 10-mile drive can take an hour if it's the wrong day of the week or if there's an accident between you and your destination. And so one day I was driving to a part of Maryland from my house, probably 30 minutes on a good day. It took me an hour and I got lost. Because back then there was no GPS in phones, no GPS in cars. MapQuest was the only kind of GPS type system. And I don't know if you remember MapQuest, but you could get lost crossing the street if you followed the directions. And so I had to call my wife and get her to get on the computer and see if she could help me figure out how to get to the client's house. And I did. The session went well. When I got back home, she said, you can't do this anymore. And I'm like, what do you mean this is working? We have momentum. She said, no, you have to stop driving. You're wasting time. You get with clients and you're frustrated because you were lost, because you were late, so on and so forth. Find a place where you can go and they can come to you. So it wasn't a sexy, I've got to have brick and mortar, because it was, you have to change your model because you're not going to make it any other way, right? That's how I ended up in a brick and mortar. Thank God my wife is brilliant, because it may take me another 10 years to get to it. And so what the brick and mortar did at that point is I could see 4 or 5 people in 2 hours versus 2 people a day because of traffic and the ebbs and flows and somebody being able to get their kids to take a nap so that, and that elevated our brand significantly because not everybody, but there are a lot of services that are sold door to door. And I didn't want to look like the hustle man with swatches in my suitcase selling door to, because that's what I was doing. But I feel like I was better, but it was no different. It was
right.
For their perspective, especially the first time, right? So I'm referred to someone and I go to their home. My name is spelled Bryn, which is Bryn in most places. I think it's a Welsh name. I don't know what my father was thinking. But so when they say, hey, they send an email to their friend, Bryn Keith is coming over and, you're going to love the clothes. They fail to mention he's a 6'8" black guy. So I would go to people's homes, ring the doorbell, and you can hear people walk to the front door. But then I hear people talking on the other side of the door. I don't know. I know he said Bryn. I don't know if that, what, right? And so then I hear them calling, hey, Bryn. Oh, it's Brian. Oh, okay. I hear this.
Yeah, you
right?
hear it through the,
Yeah, I hear it through the door. And so, then I have to kind of talk my way into people's homes, again, like a traveling, vacuum cleaner, salesperson. So the store legitimized our brand to yet another level, right? And so you didn't necessarily have to be referred, because now we have a website and we have these other ways that we can interact with our customers and begin to educate them. And that's how we ended up in the store.
Okay, now you've taken the leap.
Yes.
Now finding that store.
Yes.
Did you want it to be in a highly populated area where you had a lot of foot traffic, or were you looking for it to be in a private place where people would feel comfortable? Because like you said earlier, that people, when you were fitting people in their bathrooms and at work, which again, kind of a little weird, but Bill Cosby and doing stuff in bathrooms and knocking doors. But anyway.
We didn't know about Cos though.
Yeah,
we didn't know about Cos in 05.
But he was working at that time.
He really was.
Yeah, he was on it hard.
In his
but
prime.
right, was the location really a big part of?
Yes and no.
Okay,
it was a factor. So what I knew, and we talked about this earlier when we were preparing for the podcast, is that a lot of people have control issues. A lot of CEOs, entrepreneurs, et cetera, have control issues because they want it to be right. I knew I had to control the environment because there's so many instances with clients I couldn't. So while I wanted to be in an area of convenience for people to access, I didn't want a lot of foot traffic because I needed to be able to control the environment. I wanted to create a haven for my clients to come and escape the world, whether it was for 30 minutes for a shirt or, a couple hours for a couple of suits and a couple of shirts. I needed a place that they could get to easily, but I could control the environment. That was really my focus. So I didn't want to be on a strip mall with people walking back and forth. I didn't want to be inside of a mall because of the noise and the distractions that are in a space like that. I wanted something that was intimate, that was quaint, because that's commensurate in my mind to the brand. Something that when you walk down the sidewalk, and I think with our store location, it was brick sidewalks, and they had park benches along the way, and it was a 2-lane street, so it wasn't a lot of traffic, wasn't loud, wasn't very distracting. There were other businesses that were by appointment, so it was a chiropractor, it was a couple of hair salons, it was a studio gym where they only worked out 1 or 2 people at a time. That made sense for what I thought we needed at the time.
Now, again, was cost a factor?
Cost is always a factor.
Right.
I love watching these shows where people go on and money doesn't seem to be much of a problem. Or like Shark Tank, well, we need $400 million and our company is worth 85 cents, right? But money's never a thing because of the passion behind money. When it's a business and it's your name out front, money is very significant, right? Unless you can build a website and you can, design your own labels, and you can, come up with a whole marketing plan and financing on the back end and so on and so forth. If you have a lot of money, then it's easy to make decisions because you can pay people to do those things. But in the beginning, when I'm creating a company where I have no model, I had no model at the time. I had to learn it while I was going. Every dollar counted. And being newly married at the time, and by the time we opened a store, my daughter was born. I think my wife was pregnant with our son, and so I was very conscious about cost and how do we do this in such a way where it represents our brand the right way,
right? But
yet doesn't look like we're counting pennies at the back.
Now, what about? Now, you said earlier that one of the reasons why you chose that location was because it wasn't in a high traffic area.
Right.
Now, what if you would have gotten, just say a major store or something in a high traffic area, would have gone out of business, or they wanted to sublease to you because of some financial stuff, or just the grace, you just got a great deal. Would you have gone to that particular high traffic area, or you would have still turned that down, even if you were paying the price that you were going to pay for rent at the place that you were at? Would have gone to that high traffic spot if the rent was right, or you would have still turned it down because you like, hey, I want to be in this other spot?
It's a great question. Great, you're good at this.
Yeah, I try to be.
I'm kind of impressed.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as you're thinking of what to say.
Yeah, well, I'm buying time.
Yeah, I know.
No, I don't think I would have gone there.
Okay.
And then we looked at Georgetown in D.C., Georgetown Mall, a space, and it was affordable. The space was massive, probably 4 times the size of what I opened, but it didn't feel intimate, didn't feel personal. And I didn't know how I was going to communicate what I had been sharing with people for 3 to 4 years, going to homes and selling out of my home in a space that, quite frankly, was the size of my home almost.
Wow.
Right? So no, I wouldn't have gone there. I would have done what I did. Because
I meet so many entrepreneurs that they have a game plan, and they'll say, hey, I only have this amount of money. This is my particular customer base. This is this and this. That they'll just give me all of this stuff, and then all of a sudden, a great opportunity comes their way that's totally different from their business plan or their business model, and then they go that route because they're thinking that might be something that's great to them. Like sometimes people say, people think it's greener on the other side.
Right.
So that was the reason why, I asked that question, because I know I've been put in that situation. People say, hey, man, you should expand to this place and expand to this. But I'm like, no, I'm not really ready for that, or that's really not my customer base. But the deal just seems so good, then not switch. So just staying focused. Was that one of the things too, just staying focused? Were people really trying to come at you and just give you all these great ideas, telling you should sell this in your store, sell this, like, especially when you're just trying to open, because I know you probably had so many people in your ear before you even opened the brick and mortar.
Oh, definitely. And listen, it still happens 13 years later. And what I find interesting, and I'm sure we've talked about this over the years, the people who want to give you business advice have no skin in the game. Right. Those are the people that get to go to work, fall asleep at their desk, go back home, and still get the same paycheck. They get to go on vacation, and they still get a paycheck during that time that they were away. When you're an entrepreneur, as you know, when you're the one doing it, when you take a day off, no money comes in. When you go on vacation, it's not a paid vacation. You paid to go on vacation. So there were people then and still now who have insights on where the business should go, what it should look like next. Some of the ideas are great. I wouldn't have come up with them on my own, right? But like most entrepreneurs, I have an idea, I have a plan. And back then, that's when business plans were on napkins, before businesses were failing everywhere. And it turned into like a 15-page business plan with a presentation on PowerPoint. But some of the things I did try, and I'm risk averse because of the money and really being conscious in how to manage it all. And I would try, appetizer size plates. Let me try something small, tapas, right? Let me try a little bit of this, a little bit of that. If it makes sense and I can find a way to create momentum naturally, so it seemed organic, I would continue to do so. But if it was totally counter to what I thought the business should be, or what I felt was right for the business, what made sense, I go with my gut, I wouldn't do it. And if I tried it and it didn't work, I say, you know what, I tried it my way, but nah.
Now, jumping into the opening, so now you found the location.
On location.
And the rent is what is satisfactory to you.
Yes.
When you decided on the rent, it even though it was you were saying it was based on location,
right,
for your customers. Going from now, you don't have any overhead from coming out your out the living room.
Right.
And you had overhead a little bit because you were still driving around when
right,
you're saying, but now it's a little overhead. But now you're jumping into a brick and mortar where you're paying $2,500 a month or whatever. What was your thoughts about marking up your services or suits or shirts, things of that sort, or did you expand into other things? So now, how are you going to go from I was paying $500 in gas a month riding around, to now I'm paying $2,500 to $3,000, with the rent, with the utilities, things of that sort. How are you going to make up that margin with now going into this brick and mortar?
I tell you, that kept me up a lot, figuring it out, because it's one thing to look at the numbers and say, oh, we can push and pull and raise prices here and not do things there like eat and we'll be okay.
You'll be okay.
Yeah, we'll be okay. But one of the things that I began to communicate is that custom clothes would, and should be affordable. Mm-hmm. And so how do I offer a brand and a product where I want to still be able to support the ideal of convenience and affordability, but not be priced where the malls were and the high-end stores and all these high-end clothiers. And so ultimately, I think maybe I raised pricing 10%, not a lot, but I started offering more options. Because when you're walking in businesses with suitcases and suit bags, you can't really sell ties. It's hard to sell pocket squares because you can't carry all of it. And cufflinks, and we started getting in the beaded bracelets, which are really popular now. I'm not saying I started it, but yeah, that was me. Leather bracelets and shoestrings and even shoes we were starting to sell. But that's how I began to offset, right, what I didn't or couldn't figure out how to do from a price perspective, but I could also market differently. It's difficult when I can only see 2 people a day on Saturday because of the drive versus 22 people, because I will open up as early as you want to come. And I open a store at like 6:30 in the morning some days because I had clients going to the airport, or they heard about me on Monday in a meeting, and on Thursday they called and say, my flight's at 11, but you're right by the airport. So, right? And so that's what I did. I expanded when I could work with people. So I would see you as early as 6:30 a.m. and I would see the last person 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And all of the accessories to the clothes made up the difference. So if someone couldn't afford, $150 shirt, they could afford $25 cufflink or $40 tie.
No, let me ask you this: did you, when you first started? So was that in your in your business plan, quote unquote? Like
no. Again, okay. the business plan was a napkin. I can sell some shirts. I maybe can sell suits, but it was shirts for 2 years. There were no suits, and so that was the idea and concept of expansion wasn't part of the plan. That's not what it was to make clothes for my wife and myself, and then friends liked it and we took care of friends. Then when it began to expand, I had to expand my thinking and expectations on what I could do.
Now, how long did it take you to realize that? Like was it a month in, or was it when that first month rent came? Like, were you thinking this from the jump?
No. So when I negotiated my lease, I made sure I didn't have to make payments the first 45 or 60 days.
Okay.
So I had to put down a security deposit, and I was able to negotiate pushing back first month's rent.
Okay.
And so I had to sell every damn thing I could find that wasn't nailed down. I was going in my personal closet and putting price tags on ties and selling them. But I figured if I could get enough momentum,
right,
because the store was new and we had celebratory events every month because the store was new for 4 months. I would always have a grand opening sale. Just dust off the sign, scratch out the date. Let's do it again. Yeah. That was the marketing plan. It was the hustle.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the business plan. We're going to hustle. We hustle from door to door. And now how do I hustle in a door that doesn't move?
Did you go back to your existing customers that were like I said, when you were going to their homes and did you go back to them to try to get them to come in and help spread the word, and were you offering them specials or special deals because they were existing customers, or did you kind of look at them as like, yo, I know this dude spent $2,000 before. I know I'm gonna hit him over the head again for $2,000.
Yes. So I wasn't really good at sales in the beginning and price discounts. When my father first bought clothes from me, he paid full price.
Wow.
And so when someone wanted a discount, I could say, in all honesty, if my father pays full price, how am I going to give you a discount? Right? And it also kept people from coming in thinking they were going to negotiate prices. You're not buying a car, right? The margins were not massive because I was selling to friends. And those friends referred me to their friends, so it was an extension of my friends. And so if I sold a friend a shirt for $95, I can't kill you for $200.
And I think a lot of times people don't realize when you're in a service-based business, you can offer shit for free, because, but when you have something with something tangible, like you were saying, like it costs for you to get that shirt. I don't care if you pay $5 for it, $10, and you're selling it for $90. You have a cost behind it.
Right.
So I think that's what people don't understand. Like, when I can tell them like, yo, man, I normally charge X amount of money for me to come do some, come do some counseling for you or some shit. But then I'll say, oh, don't worry about it, man. I'll do it for free.
Right.
That ain't shit, because that's really nothing coming out of my pocket.
Right.
But if I'm actually giving you something that's tangible, that actually costs me something.
Yes.
So how did you go from now with your first customers? Were they the supportive kind? Like, did they really support you because they saw your growth, or did you kind of get some people pushing back because they were like, okay, now you big time and now you're trying to grow? Like, how did you fight that, or was it a fight?
Wasn't a fight.
Okay.
Wasn't a fight. And part of it, I think, was just my personality, right? A lot of people, because in the beginning they were friends of friends of friends, and they were coming to my house. My wife's family's from Jamaica, so we're making. She's making, not we're. I don't make Jamaican food. just in case my in-laws hear this, because I don't. I eat it really well, but I don't make it. But no, I mean, we making jerk chicken while people are getting measured for shirts and picking out. Like, you came into my house, you were family, right? And so those people were very excited to see how I had grown. Even if I saw you last month and I'm like, the store's open and you got to come check it out, you're going to buy something else.
I've had to tell people that sometimes, because I think people think they feel ashamed that they're starting off in their stores, out of their car. But I'm like, most of the people I met, they like to see the growth in people. You know what I mean? Like, so when you are saying that, hey man, I'm expanding, that's something cool. Now, your market.
Yes.
When I think of custom clothes, I think of it being double to triple the cost of when I would go to a Macy's or Bloomingdale's or something like that. How did you get your costs to the point where, or to market your product to people? What did they, when you first came, approached them, what was the thing you were talking about? Was it the price point, or was it the experience?
The experience, the quality, and the service, right? So experience and service are synonymous. Okay. But the experience, if I can take you to a world, create a space that you've never been before, to provide a service, to measure you, to teach you about how certain collars on shirts work with your face, colors work with your skin tone, based on the environments that you expect to wear these clothes, then people are willing to pay a little more to get a little more. It's different when you walk into a department store and the person with the name tag says, "Can I help you?" and follow you around, versus me bringing everything to you and laying it in front. And then telling you, how do you want to shop? Do you want me to be hands-on and very involved, or do you want me to sit back and let you do you?
That makes sense. Like, so now you're in your store. How long did you have your store?
The store, 9.5 years.
Okay, so we're gonna jump into why don't you have the store now, which I really think is a really cool thing. So within those 9 years, from year 1 to year 9, what was the things that you saw in the market? Because obviously, like you said, you talked about MapQuest, and most of these people probably don't even remember what MapQuest is, because anyway. What was the difference? What was the shift from when you first started, when you opened that brick and mortar, to that 9th year? What was the change in the industry, good, bad, and indifferent?
I tell you what, it was the maturity of the clothing industry for people in the middle and the people on the ends. How was it one of the ends of the spectrum at 6'8" versus the friend who was, I was making clothes for people who weren't 5 feet tall yet, right. Adults, right? Wow. And so it was the fact that people could come in and they knew fabrics better. They knew what cashmere was supposed to feel like versus all wool, or I want a gabardine shirt, or I want herringbone, or do you have paisley? Like, there was this, you could access information because it was everywhere.
So that helped you?
That helped me, because now I have educated consumers who have a more educated baseline than what I saw in the very beginning of opening the store, and over time, because part of my service it's about the education and understanding. When people would come in and say, "I want a year-round suit," well, what's it for? For the wintertime. Wait, what?
That's fascinating, because a good friend of mine, he owned a radio shop, a car radio shop, and they used to do car installations, radio installations, and he had his spot for like 10 years.
Right.
And he said that at the beginning, it was that, again, he was educating people about the radios and their cars, the speakers, the amplifiers, and all that. And when you educated them, because they went with you.
Right.
But as the years went on, as they were, as the customers were able to get more education about the radios and the subwoofers, the amps, and things of that sort, that they would come to him just to get validation on what they should choose.
Right.
And then they would go do it themselves, or they would go to someone else, because now they're price battling.
Right. Right.
He hated that everybody was educated, because everybody really thought they were smart. But for you, you're saying that like you love the education.
Yeah, it was a good thing. It was a good thing and necessary. Now and what I also appreciate is people would come in and challenge me, because they had been on the internet and this X, Y, and Z, or it should be this, should be that. Well, I heard it was. I'm still 3 steps ahead of you, because I was learning this stuff before people knew it was stuff to learn. And I was fine with that. Love being challenged, except by my wife. I love being challenged. But no, it was good for me, and it still is. And I appreciate that, because when people come in and know what they want, they know they can't get it in other places. They know they can't get it in Macy's. You can get a suit at Macy's for $50, but are you going to be able to wear that suit 10 years from now?
Did you go into the alteration part? Like, what if someone they already had their suit, they bought one of those Steve Harvey suits, and and they wanted it all to, they wanted to look like a Oswald Boateng suit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we did it. We did it. So, but I couldn't add that service till I opened the store. Okay. To the point earlier, what things could we add to generate more income? We could take an existing suit or a suit that you bought somewhere else and give it a custom type fit. There are elements that we can't make custom on a ready-made suit, but we could, change the body, take the shoulders off, move them in, slim this, expand that to give you more of a custom fit when possible.
We keep talking about custom suits.
Yes.
Did you make the suits yourself, or did you have people in house that made them, or did you use outside people, to make your suit?
So no, I did not make the suit myself. I'm really good sewing on buttons, though. I'm really good with buttons. And honestly, I can do a lot of mending. I can fix hems. I can adjust hems, holes on seams, but I do it by hand. I'm deathly afraid of a sewing machine. I don't know why. I just feel like I can lose a finger.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't. But I'm not taking that chance, because I like my hands.
Custom suit dude saying that he's
afraid of a sewing machine.
Wow.
Yes.
I would never buy a suit from you.
Just know that I know where to get one.
Man, that's just like the dude working on my electricity in my house saying he afraid of electricity. Like, yo, dog, okay. But anyway, no, I'm
I don't like currents. Yeah. So now it was the notion with that was, let me find the best that I can find to create this product, and it happened to be overseas in Hong Kong. Okay. I've used the same workshop for the entire 13 years in business. Now our tailors have phased in and out, right? For us to get it and produce a quality product, our tailors are, the youngest may be in his mid-50s.
Wow.
Because this is an industry, and it's also a culture where it's an honor to make clothes, where you're an apprentice for however long, and maybe for a month, all you're doing is sewing buttons. That's it.
Wow.
You sew buttons for a month before you get to do the next thing. And there are people who just cut fabrics. They don't sew, they don't mend, they don't even iron. They just cut the fabrics. And I wanted specificity because I wanted quality. And I figured with a quality product and a quality service and a very special experience, you wouldn't want to go anywhere else ultimately. And there were bumps in the road, but it was important to me that we got it really right in the beginning.
Now, choosing overseas.
Yes.
Did you try to get some companies here in Atlanta? Here in the States to do it? And if you did, was it a cost factor or was it a quality factor?
In 2005, I didn't know where to go. And so I went to one of the stores where I'd purchased clothes, going back to that moment where my pre-wife made some suggestions on what should be in my wardrobe. And then going back to one of those stores and talking to the owner, and the owner seeing something in me, the drive, the hustle, the desire to whatever, and maybe knew he'd make money off of me. That's how I began to look for and find the workshop that I have, and it was all emails. Right?
Wow.
It was no internet. There was no Skyping back then. You couldn't WhatsApp and FaceTime. Emails back and forth.
I have a couple of tailor-made suits, and I went to the tailor, and the thing that he kept telling me was like, "Hey, I'm making these suits. These suits are, they're made by me, and but it was still taking like 3 weeks, and I know I got a suit made by you. You did the exact same things he did to me. You measured me, boom, boom, and I had my suit in a couple of weeks. Right. It was basically the same time. It was the same time.
I'll tell you, he didn't make your suit because to make a custom suit, it takes a long time, right? We have to measure you, create a pattern based on those measurements, qualify that the measurements, the pattern, that all of that stuff is right before you cut the fabric to begin building the suit. That in itself can take a week, unless you've got somebody who's 55 and started when he was 15 or 20 and can turn them out faster, but there's a well-oiled machine and process to do that. And like our stuff is truly custom. It's not made to measure where you go into a room and find a sleeve that fits your right arm, a sleeve that fits your left arm, and then we sew it to the body. Everything is made from scratch. And so for him to do that and say he did it in 2 to 3 weeks, either he didn't sleep or other people were making it. And if he was doing it in 2 to 3 weeks and not sleeping, then you were paying 2 to 3 times what I'm charging for a suit because he couldn't do anything else.
Yeah, I do a lot of business over in London, and I went to a quote unquote custom suit guy, and I'm not going to say his name, and really well known, and he told me that his suits was custom. And he told me that that's the branding of his name, and I literally saw that he was sending his stuff off.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was like, wow, like people and people are paying $5,000-$6,000 for his suits. Right. And I was kind of shocked by that.
Where I have my suits made in Hong Kong, they make components of the suits that are being sold in London. So instead of the entire suit being sent, they'll make the bodies, they'll make the arms, but not connect them. And that way it's finished in London. And so some of these custom houses in London say it's done in-house. It's finished in-house, but it's not made in-house. And it sounds like that's what he's done.
I've heard with the clothing business, the reason why most people want the big department store to sell their items is because when that department store, that big brand, they purchase your clothes, they're doing a huge order, so they might, and I guess in your case they might order 100
right.
Suits, and if you're selling them for wholesale to them for $1,000, that's $100,000. The reason why I've heard that their cash flow is good because it's this thing called factoring, where, and you can explain a little bit more about factoring, where people it's companies out there that'll pay you a big percentage up front for your invoice that you got. And then, once you get the money. So can you explain factoring, and did you go that route in generating money when you are waiting for these suits to come in to keep operating?
So we did creative financing. Did we factor? Probably not. And to your point, to expand on factoring, it's when I'll take in an order of, say, 5 suits, and we'll say we're selling them for $1,000 each, so that's $5,000. But with us, again, because I started with family, started with friends, we had this notion, if anything you purchase is over $500, you could give us 50% up front, and 50% when you come back in for your fitting, or 50, when you pick up. Well, when you have enough of these 50% happening, I'm not making any money. I'm barely covering the cost for the clothes, not the overhead, but the clothes. And so with factoring, for instance, I would take that invoice to someone and say, I need money, I need cash flow. And here is, $5,000 will pay out in X number of weeks. What can I get now? And so they'll pay me maybe not the full 5,000, but 4,000. So now I got 4,000 in my hands to go and do whatever I need to do. But when that final pay comes in, 5,000, they get all five. So it's the cost of doing business essentially.
Now, did you know about factoring before you opened the brick and mortar, or even when you were in your living room?
No, I didn't. I was floating the business on credit cards, right? So I first had to buy into the supply line, and that was a credit card. And when it was just for me and the wife, it was okay. We knew we'd pay it off. We'd save money. And then when friends started buying from us, so within 6 to 9 months, I paid that card off from having to buy into the supply line. And so going into the store was the same thing. It was friends and family. Hey man, you know what? I'll get that lamp for you. My gift to you is that lamp. Cool. All right. So now I got $2,800 of stuff I still need. I should have gotten married, and that would have been on our wedding registry to fill the store. Yeah, man. But no, it was, so I would float money between credit cards and payments. So before I opened the store, I was still working in corporate, and I was robbing Peter to pay Paul to kind of make things work. And then once I was in the store full time, and really giving it a good go, again, I had enough of a base financially that I kind of factored from myself, right? Well, really my wife, because my money is her money and her money is her money, and that's why I'm happily married.
Now, again, I keep talking from you going into the storefront, because now you have overhead. Right. So those 9 years you've been in the storefront, when did you really start profiting, making money? And when I say, not saying saving money or put money in the bank, if your overhead was $5,000, when you start making $5,001, like from that year 1 to that year 9, when did you start?
I think between year 4 and year 6 is in the stores when we really started making money, which was a gift and a curse. So that year, that time, I had reconstructive surgery on my foot. It was supposed to be a 90-minute surgery, and I'd be walking in 3 months. And the surgery ended up taking 3 hours. And it took me about 9 months to learn how to walk again without any aids. And in that year, I was heavily medicated for pain and pain management. And so I would drive to the store, take the pain medication, because you're not supposed to, take those heavy drugs while you're driving. And so that was the model, the hustle. But in that year, I sold in that window, maybe it was year 5, I sold $250,000 worth of clothes by myself on oxycodone. That was my pain meds. And so I feel like I should go back on oxycodone so I can amplify that number.
And again, I just keep Bill Cosby
man.
I'm like, yo, man, like we really need to. I don't get it, but keep going.
But oxy didn't put you to sleep. Doesn't put
right.
But the thing is, because I was medicating for pain, I can't tell you how I sold $250,000 worth of clothes.
Wow.
I don't remember. Wow. I had very happy clients. My workshop overseas were ecstatic. I had 2 or 3 tailors that I used locally to do tweaks and finishes, and they all did well. Everyone gave me gifts that year.
See, this is the funny thing about that, because that was the next question I was going to ask you. Everything you're saying, even when you went from your living room to the storefront, it was still everything based on you. You were still running the ship. Yeah. So even when you got on the oxycodone,
don't say I got on.
I'm sorry, because because of your foot. Yeah, and right, and that keeps people up instead of putting them to sleep. Right. Bill Cosby. So what I'm saying is that, did you think? So was that the time that you were like, okay, I need some help? Like, I need to put more responsibility on my vendors, or even bringing your wife into it to kind of help you? Or did you just say, okay, I'm gonna really, really go through this time of of awkwardness, and kind of to really expand your product?
Right. So no, I didn't. We talked about this in the beginning. Entrepreneurs and leaders and CEOs have this sense of control, and I really felt no one could do what I did. And such a bonehead, because there's so many people who do it far better, right? Who are younger, more agile, smarter, much smarter. But no, I kept doing it myself because I had convinced myself, ego is always an issue, that no one could do it quite like I would do it, quite like I could do it. So I kept trying to hit that 250 mark. Oh, I can do it again. I can do 250 again this year.
Right.
Or actually, I can do 3 this year because I did 250,
Right.
and I couldn't walk half the year. I was on a scooter and crutches.
Right.
Right. And so what I noticed is I started trending the opposite way. I kept, each year was a little less, little less, little less, little less. Now, mind you, I never changed my business model.
No, why do you think you started going down? Was it because, again, when you were put in that crazy situation of your ankle, did you kind of have a heightened sense of like, okay, I got to get it done now? You're walking straight, you're doing good. Now that you kind of like you start trending down because you're comfortable, or I mean, what was it?
Oxycodone may be the limitless pill. It may be. It made me a genius for that 9 months, right? And then as soon as I stopped, I was dumb again. No, I think the part of the trend and the shift, it was my fault. Other part was industry. My fault. I can make you a suit that'll last 10 years. Once you have 10 suits in your closet, and I teach you how to take care of the suits, so on and so forth, you don't have to come back. I have clients who, it'll be 13 years in November, still wear their original shirts because I've taught them how to take care of the shirts and what that means. So once you have 20 shirts, you're only wearing a shirt once a month. What am I going back for?
Once you got into that 6-7 year period, and your customers are really happy, they love you, your customer service is good, they don't really need you anymore. So and so you're thinking of how can you try to bring them back. Now, is that why you closed the brick and mortar, because you felt like you kind of hit the limit with your existing customers, and now with this new customer base of people kind of really being smart now? Like when you were in your 6th year, people were smart, but now people really are smart. Like, like they can find everything online. Was that the reason why you were like, okay, my customer base is happy, they love me, I don't want to just keep going back to the well with them and just, like you say, just start selling anything just to try to get them to come back in? Or was it just like, hey, it's time for me to move on and to do some new shit?
Yeah, it was time to transition the business. And then also, after doing it for so long, I think I'd gotten kind of old and stodgy, and I didn't enjoy teaching as much, especially the people who knew it all. When you can stand in front of your laptop, hit a button, and spin around 360 and send off a suit order. I want to provide an experience for you.
Yo, I saw that shit. I was like, wow. Like, I think I called you. It was maybe about 2-3 years ago. I was up late one night, and I saw this shit. I'm not gonna say their name, but I was like, yo, they talk about take a picture of yourself in like 5 different positions, right, and send it to them, and then they'll send you a custom shirt. And I actually did it. I didn't tell you, Brian. And I actually, yeah. I'm telling you, right, with listeners, yeah, but but we just started. This like podcast 5, so ain't nobody listening to this. Yeah. But anyway, so, and I sent it in, and I think it was like $80. Dude, that shirt was whack. Like, that shit fit me horrible, and I was like, and I felt like I got conned. But now again, I don't know how technology has but is that one of the reasons why you decided to close, or it was just like, was it that particular company that I sent you?
Well, it's definitely a factor. And so when people feel conned, they feel burned, now they don't want to take a chance, right? They don't want to do it again. Or when they walk in my door, I have to convince them that this experience, this process, is not what they experience with the online picture portal thing, right? But a lot of people are gun shy. Like, you know what? I'm just going to go back to the store where I've been buying terrible ass clothes, but they fit, and I know what I'm going to get. And so that's that. The other part was the maturation, to your point, of my customers. They were junior executives, now they're executives. And so instead of having to wear suits all the time, they can wear jeans, t-shirt, blazer, pocket square, and it works. Because that's also the culture of clothing now, where people are working remotely, especially in the DC market. They don't have to go into the office anymore. And so they have meetings in t-shirts and pajama bottoms if they want.
Yeah,
Nobody sees
that's
them.
cool. Now you're transitioning. Okay, now you're out of the brick and
Yes.
mortar. Now you're changing your business quote unquote model. Now the business plan is probably still the same: service, customer service, the experience. So now what are you doing different to get new clients and to cater to your old clients?
So in leaving the store and taking a break, and I closed the store 3 or 4 months ago, I'm transitioning to a private office. And so the store that I opened 9 years ago was 400 square feet. And one of the offices we're honestly in the negotiations phase is about 1,300 square feet. But what I've decided is I want to create a design space. So in the maturation of the store, clients would come, we had Wi-Fi, music playing, they'd bring laptops, just kind of hang out, order clothes, spend time, and I would work with them on anything. So if they have a problem with their staff, challenges in relationships, so on and so forth, I had become a psychologist in my own shop, right? And I thought, now how do I extend this kind of experience? Because this is now very personal. People come in and they're getting divorced and they break down, and I don't want to lose my wife and my kids and my house and so on and so forth, and kind of coach them out of that moment to see the opportunity in mending things. Or if you can't mend the relationship, because it's not always on you, here are some of the things, here are the lessons you learned along the way that hopefully make you a better person, right?
So you're going from, is your business model still selling suits, or is it going to be more helping the experience of, okay, if you want to buy a suit or if you want to buy something, but it's the experience of life and
it's experience of life. What I realized in fitting people in custom clothes for the first time, when they stand in front of that oversized mirror, they see a version of themselves they didn't know existed. If you can imagine always wearing an oversized shirt, you've always worn Steve Harvey suits. And one day I make a suit that is cut to accentuate all of the attributes of your physique. Superman goes from Clark Kent to wearing this skin tight suit and looks, like a superhero. When you see yourself as a superhero for the first time, there's a shift mentally that happens. And now you begin to see yourself in a different way. You no longer want to wear these junk clothes that you bought from these big box retailers. You don't want to try to get clothes from these online, stand in front of your cell phone and your clothes show up and hopefully they fit. Now we have this kind of relationship where I'm beginning to coach you. And so now I'm certified to coach as an intentional coach, whether it's relationships, whether it's your business or you're developing teams. And so I've shifted and I've really become almost a lifestyle designer. And so in creating this creative space, we'll have a traditional conference room, but we'll also have a creative room where one wall is nothing but dry erase paint and the adjoining wall is a cork board. So you can tack and nail up images, fabrics, whatever it is you're working on. And we have I think it's like an elevator table. We can lower it to 3 feet or lift it so it's about 5 feet off the ground, but it's a creative space. And so we'll still have the elements of Bryn Keith. We're going to create a room that's a fitting room that transforms you, that's nothing like the other spaces. So in this 1,200 square feet, we have 6 different offices, and each office will allow clients and customers to do something different. So if somebody wants to come in, have a fitting, and hey, Bryn, can we use the conference room for a meeting? Go right ahead.
You've learned from going from your living room to a brick and mortar to now to your next phase in business, that it sounds so different to me. It sounds like you went from corporate to entrepreneur to now almost a psychiatrist. And when I say that, I mean you're really helping people find themselves or be better at doing something. Is that true?
That's it. And I think that's what I've always done. I just didn't understand it. I didn't understand it. But now it's clear to me when people come for me to make a tuxedo for their wedding, a suit for their wedding, or the father of the bride has to look a certain way. So he's found me, and now I'm helping him write the speech that he's making for the toast, right? It's all the same, but it's been my development, my maturation as a business owner, as a person, as a husband, as a father, as a friend, and all of that aggregates into who and what I am now and how I want to share that for my customer base.
Wow. I mean, that's so cool, because one of the things that I always tell people about entrepreneurship is that we are all learning. We're all like, we always have a business plan. We always have this big thing that we want to do. But when you get into it, it's all about educating. It's all about helping. And to me, what you're saying is that you're really going from, or in your mind, you're going from making a suit to really making someone a better person. And I really feel that entrepreneurship is that's why we're in it, to really improve something, to make a change in the world. And this is really, really cool. I didn't even really know all of this stuff about you, man. So just to sum it up, man, so tell me what you would want to tell the customers, man, about yourself and just this journey in entrepreneurship, just a real thing, real story that you want to tell your kids, or you'll just tell, anybody just about this thing we call entrepreneurship.
So what I share, and I'm always sowing into my kids all the time, because they're supposed to be better than me. It's my responsibility. And so when I meet with a client for the first time, I tell them my responsibility is to help them improve in something, whether it's their look, their feel, their sense of self, what have you. Every day you're supposed to be better than who you were yesterday. If only to recognize there's a challenge that you've yet to overcome, you've got to begin to do that thing. Starting in my living room was comfortable because it was my living room. I was fearful in putting the clothes in the trunk of the car and hoping that the people whispering on the other side of the door would actually let me in. And then to open a retail space, not knowing if it was going to work, how it was going to work, like all of that is real. And I tell my kids, like, fear is real, but it's not really. Fear isn't real. Our minds make it real. Our minds turn it into something far more significant than what it could be. Fear is nothing more than when your mind, your body, your spiritual self comes up against or sees or interacts with something it has never encountered before, and it doesn't know how to respond. So how do you overcome fear? Knowledge. Once you understand the thing that you're not comfortable with, you're no longer fearful. So it started with wardrobes. It started with wearing different colors. It started with people seeing a version of themselves physically that they hadn't seen before, because they didn't have the knowledge, the know-how, or to find the person with the expertise to help them begin to make that shift. So that's that.
Man, that's fear is real. I've told people that I didn't really want this to be one of those motivational shows, because I think a lot of times people give real general bullshit scenarios and just blanket things with that motivational stuff. But that's like the realest shit I've ever heard. Fear is real, because as an entrepreneur, I'm always facing fear. We're always in that fearful mode. We're always, just like they say, comedians. Comedians, they're not always funny. They fear going on stage. They're some of them are the most insecure people on earth. And as entrepreneurs, I think facing that fear is the realest thing that you can do. And man, I really, really appreciate you, and I really think that this is going to really start off some really, really, really cool conversation with entrepreneurs, and I really, really appreciate it, bro.
Thank you. And to your point in rapping, You know, I want to shift the lens now where facing fear is real. Yeah, not fear. Fear's not real. Not anymore. Not because of you. Not now. Fear's not real. Facing the fear is real. And when you can do that and make that shift, man, amazing stuff really does happen. It really does happen, and you do it every day. And you don't stop.
Yeah, don't stop, man. I definitely appreciate it, man. But again, this is the opinionated truth, with my man Bryn Keith, and we're gonna really have some more to come. All right, thank you so much, bro.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.